Heart just dropped. It wasn't the drawings that got me, it was the fucking chair. Sounds good, everything's good. I see you see me, that's why I like to see no show, but I'm positive, yo. I'm Anonymous Beanie Man, and now for sure, and we about to watch this video by Bale called Why Blue's Clues is a Fantasy Inside Law and Order. Again, found this video because it popped up on my shit, but goddamn, I'm glitching. Let me replug up my camera. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I doubt it. Because who the fuck is thinking about, unless there's like writers that's on this animated show and then crossed over to the live action shit, then I can see why it can be canonized a little bit.
Foreshadowing,
I guess. But your guess is as good as mine if you haven't seen this already. So that's the plan. Watch Shoot Me Up.
Hi there.
Oh.
Blue's Clues is an educational children's TV
Where did
show
you
about a man named Steve who lives in a magical world where he spends his day talking to inanimate objects, jumping through picture frames, and trying to find clues to help understand his—
You know, even when I was little, because I think of like realistically, I thought he was schizophrenic. I knew this wasn't real when I was little. I was never immersed in the experience of Blue's Clues. I always thought this was fucking creepy as shit. This show used to give me the fucking creeps. But I love it. Fuck.
his magical blue dog.
Yes.
Law & Order is a gritty, realistic police procedural / legal drama that involves New York City homicide detectives trying to solve murders and prosecute criminals. These two shows are very different. You could not find two shows more polar opposite than Blue's Clues and Law & Order. And yet, despite this, not only do I believe that these two shows exist in the same universe—
Who is that?
But I'm also going to be proving that the entire Blue's
Where's
Clues
Olivia?
show is actually just a fantasy inside of the mind of a single Law & Order side character. Yes, I am being serious. I know that sounds crazy, but just stick with me, because I'm pretty sure that I have discovered a 29-year-old secret that has never been talked about before today. Get ready, because this is the Blue's Clues Law & Order theory.
Hey, shake that ass. Hey, commit the murder. I'm finna shoot you and your mother. Go suck your mother. Left hip like it's an udder, bitch. Fuck. Yeah.
By far, the most common type of fan theory is the dream theory. The idea that everything happening in a story is actually all just inside of a character's head, whether they're stuck in a coma, or they're dreaming, or hallucinating, or they're actually dead. Pretty much in a coma, or they're dreaming.
This is dark. This is so dark.
Or hallucinating, or they're actually dead. Pretty much every piece of media has some kind
That
of
disturbed me.
theory. And it's sort of the lazy, low-hanging fruit of fan theories. You can just apply it to literally anything, and usually there's never actually any evidence besides, "Whoa, this show is so crazy and unrealistic, that must mean it's a dream!" And surprisingly, the show that seems to have the most of these types of fan theories is Blue's Clues. You got Steve is actually schizophrenic, Steve is actually in a mental asylum, Steve is actually a drug addict, Steve is actually in prison, Steve is actually a murderer who killed his parents. Oh my god. Even I made a parody of these theories back in 2017.
So yeah, it's a pretty basic, normal kid show.
Oh my god.
Steve, a 30-year-old schizophrenic who killed his parents, pretends to be a kid.
You know, that was before I dedicated my life to making fan theories about kid shows. And look, I understand the appeal of these types of theories. It's fun to take something innocent from your childhood and give it a dark, edgy plot twist. That's kind of literally my job right now. But why are there so many of these theories about specifically Blue's Clues?
Bro, I don't know.
Well,
You tell me.
I think it's because everything about this show has always felt fake. Steve is the only real person in this world. He looks like a young adult, but he acts like a child. And
Who the fuck? I know you fucking lying. Listen here, listen here. When I was little, I thought this nigga looked old as shit. I was like, going off to college? Bitch, I thought it was time for your high school reunion. I know you fuck. He do not look like nobody young adult even when he was young. I'm sorry, no shade, but some people just don't look their age. I get that all the time. I don't look like I'm 19. People say I look like I'm 21, 22. And it's like, no, the fuck I don't. You're just lying. But it's subjective. He never looked young to me.
He lives alone in a house where he spends his day jumping into
And this nigga looks better with facial hair. Not Steve, the guy who's doing the theory.
picture frames or talking to unseen voices or inanimate objects. It just kind of sounds like I'm describing someone who is experiencing some kind of false reality. Even the way Steve moves around is strange. He never actually leaves the room, he just kind of pretends to walk in place while this fantasy world moves around him.
Oh.
Obviously, that was more of a filming limitation, but it still adds to this feeling of fakeness. But other than these surface level weird vibes the show gives off, there's never actually been any strong evidence to prove one of these theories. And believe me, I and others have looked. It has been 28 years since this show first came out. You know, you'd think if there was actually some kind of smoking gun here, we would have found it by now. But what if that's because we've all been looking in the wrong place?
Huh?
So, the other day, I stumbled upon an interesting piece of Blue's Clues trivia. A year after Steve Burns filmed
I
the Blue's
fucking knew
Clues
it.
pilot,
I didn't I say this? Didn't I say this? I said one of the writers. Okay, I said one of the writers, but it still counts. I said one way to canonize this is if one person from this show worked on another show. Like, do I even have to finish watching this video? Look.
he had a small role in an episode of Law and Order. And I thought the idea of seeing Steve from Blue's Clues in a gritty, realistic
Sorry if you can
cop
hear me
show
drinking.
was kind of funny, so I decided to track down the 1995 episode titled Cruel and Unusual. Just a heads up, this episode deals with some pretty serious subject matter, so please proceed with caution.
Oh.
In this episode, Steve Burns plays a kid with autism named Kevin Jeffries.
Good morning, how are you?
Great.
What time is it?
10:15.
No, it's 10:18.
We learn that Kevin has trouble communicating with others and often harms himself. So his parents send him to live in a children's behavioral clinic.
Just what was the behavioral clinic doing for him?
When Kevin was 10, he started to hurt himself.
We didn't know what to do. We couldn't keep Kevin here. We had to send him away.
We later find out that the doctors at this clinic were horribly mistreating him by giving him intense electroshock therapy and forcing him to wear a sensory
what?
him by giving him intense electroshock therapy and
Why does
Couldn't keep Kevin here. We had to send him away.
we later find out that the doctors at this clinic were horribly mistreating him by giving him intense electroshock therapy and forcing him to wear a sensory deprivation helmet for days.
He kept Kathy in this helmet for 3 straight days. This helmet cut off the blood supply to our daughter's brain.
The episode starts with Kevin after he's escaped from the facility.
I vaguely
but
remember
tragically,
this.
he gets arrested and later succumbs to the injuries sustained from his abuse and dies.
I don't know, Mike. I think the kid's dead.
And the rest of the episode follows the detectives investigating his death. So yeah, this is a very
Not the
sad
thing.
and serious episode, and it deals with some real systemic issues that are still a problem today. And like I was saying, this show is clearly very, very different than Blue's Clues. But what I find interesting about this is that for years, people have been trying to prove that Steve is actually in prison or a mental facility, and now we have this piece of media where we see Steve's actor in that exact position, and as far as I'm aware, no one's ever really talked about this. I mean, sure, Kevin's not schizophrenic, he has autism, but seeing as how he was being abused and put into sensory deprivation for days where he
is he about to make the connection that he was dissociating throughout his abuse, and that's what Blue's Clues is?
couldn't hear or see anything, you can kind of imagine that anyone in that position might try to escape to some kind of fantasy inside of their head.
Do I need to finish watching this video? Girl!
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting coincidence, but at the end of the day, that's kind of all it was. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
just because the same actor shows up in 2 different shows doesn't mean they're actually connected. But then, I took a closer look at this episode, and I started to notice more and more weird similarities between Kevin and Steve. At first, it just started with some little things. We are told by Kevin's parents that he was learning to draw.
Thanks to him, Kevin was learning to draw.
And in every episode of Blue's Clues, Steve draws in his handy-dandy notebook.
Our handy-dandy? Notebook. Let's draw a rectangle, and there, cheese.
Okay, but so what? Lots of kids like to draw. But we are also told that
I
when
remember
Kevin
copying
harmed
this when I was
himself,
little.
He was strapped to a chair.
We put them in a chair, and then we hold them there using soft cuffs.
And in every episode of Blue's Clues, Steve spends a lot of time in his thinking chair.
We're ready to sit in our
Thinking chair.
Now that we're in our thinking chair, let's think.
And then when Kevin escaped
Why did my heart just drop? It wasn't the drawings that got me. It was the fucking chair, nigga. Oh yeah, maybe. Maybe this isn't as surface level as I thought.
the facility, he kept asking people what time it was.
What time is it?
10:15.
What time?
How you doing today, huh?
What time?
Now, it is common for some people with autism to rely on specific schedules or routines, but what time it is also really important in Blue's Clues.
What time is it?
What time is it now?
Steve has a cleanup time,
We just had cleanup time.
a nap time.
It's Blue's nap time.
Now it's time for so long. There's a talking clock. And most of all, every day, Steve has mail time.
Mail time.
Hey, Blue!
Sorry.
The mail's here!
So yeah, there's some weird similarities here, but nothing actually concrete. I didn't really start to take any of this seriously.
Nah, that chair
until-
shit. I don't know. That chair shit. That is a very creepy parallel.
I realized.
Even if it wasn't
after
intentional.
Kevin escaped, we are told that he went to a movie theater. And guess what he did in the theater?
Movie started at 10. He was out of here by 10 after 10. Got out of his seat, walked into the screen.
Kevin got out of his seat and tried to walk into the screen. Doesn't that sound exactly like Steve Blue-Skidooing into a picture?
Begin to.
The screen. Doesn't that sound exactly like Steve Blue-Skidooing into a picture?
We can too.
Got out of his seat, walked into the screen.
This kind of feels like more than a coincidence. So this is when I first started to consider, is it really possible that Kevin Jeffries from Law & Order is the real Steve, and Blue's Clues is all a fantasy he created to escape his abusive reality? Okay, I know you're not convinced yet, and to be honest,
No,
neither
I'm
was I.
partially convinced. You had me sold at the chair.
But don't worry, we are just getting started. Kevin's behavioral clinic is in New York City, and the one-time characters actually leave the Blue's Clues fantasy world and go to the real world, they end up in New York.
Blue's Clues in New York City? This is epic!
Also, in the very
Okay,
first
I don't like the new Steve. Josh. I love people of color, right? I love it. Love to see it. He reminds me of I don't know if this is racist, but Roy Wasabi. He reminds me of Roy Wasabi because that's what I grew up watching. So when I think of him, I think of Roy. Love it. It's just, why is his shirt blue, girl?
Of Blue's Clues.
Well, I mean,
we can
Steve's
see
shirt was
newspaper
purple.
from the New York Times inside of Steve's house,
new Steve.
strongly implying that's actually where he lives. We can also see objects from Blue's Clues in Kevin's life. In Kevin's parents' house,
Really?
we see a very large salt and pepper shaker, just like Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper.
Hi, Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper.
Hello, Steve. Hello, Steve.
And in the clinic, we can see a red bucket, just like Steve's friend, Bale.
Hello, Bale.
Hi, Steve.
Also, when Steve left the show to go to college, he left on a blue bus.
I thought this nigga
And
had
when
a...
Kevin escaped the clinic, in his pocket, he had a schedule for the Greyhound,
There you go. Amtrak schedule, Greyhound schedules.
which is also a blue bus. Alright, those are some more interesting connections, but you're probably still not
Okay, the bus, sure. The bus, great connection. But the other shit kind of seems like you're microanalyzing a little bit.
completely sold yet, right? Well, check this out.
Girl, what?
When Steve eventually left the show to go to college, he was replaced by his younger brother Joe.
Joe.
It's me.
Joe.
Steve's brother Joe.
And later,
Okay.
Joe got replaced by their cousin Josh.
Hi, it's me, Josh.
So
And
who
no-
crossbreeded? That is racist as fuck. I would just like to come out and apologize for my micro. Let me know if I gotta do an actual apology video, because I don't think anybody's gonna watch this enough for me to get backlash.
Not only does Kevin also have a younger brother, but at the clinic, there is a nurse named Joe.
What's your name? Joe Garvey. Joe Garvey, you're under arrest for assault.
And an occupational therapist named Josh.
Take a look at the amended complaint. An occupational therapist, Josh Bingham, was dropped.
I think that Kevin is taking aspects from his real life, like the objects or the names of the people working at the clinic, and applying them to his fantasy. Also, this one is less impressive, but the name Kevin is also the name of the Blue's Clues UK host.
Hello out there, it's me, Kevin.
Also, check this out. Kevin's behavioral clinic has the same initials as Blue's Clues. Huh? That one's also not that impressive, I know. But wait. If this theory is true, and all of this is just inside of Kevin's head, then why does the main character of his fantasy keep changing?
Hi, come on in. Hi, come on in. Hi, come on in.
Did Joe ever have a purple shirt? Didn't he have a purple shirt? Joe had a purple shirt, didn't he? Didn't he? Am I making that up? He had to, because Josh has a blue one. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Maybe Joe and
Am
Josh
I
could
schizo?
actually just be from two
Did I
different
imagine
kids
that?
who took Kevin's spot in the clinic after he died. But the clinic gets shut down at the end of the episode.
You made them close the clinic.
So they would all have to be from Kevin. But why? Well, we're told that Kevin has tried to escape from the clinic before.
Well, we called the police this morning as soon as the clinic told us that Kevin ran away. He's done this before.
So what if every time a host leaves Blue's Clues,
That's him escaping the
it's
clinic?
actually Kevin trying to escape the clinic, and when he's inevitably put back inside,
He's done this before.
his fantasy resets with a new Blue's Clues host.
Hi, come on in. Hi, come on in. Hi, come on in.
Okay, so there is a surprising amount of connections here. You can't deny that. But it still kind of feels like we're missing something.
Oh.
Like, I can see why Kevin would imagine a fun, colorful world to escape his abuse, but
That's what
why
I
is
did.
Kevin's fantasy so focused on playing a scavenger hunt game with a blue dog? As far as I can tell, there's nothing similar to that in this episode. Well, I think to answer this, we need to take a closer look at what Blue's Clues actually is. At the beginning of the Law & Order episode, Kevin's doctor explained to the detectives why Kevin harmed himself.
It's pretty common with some autistic children. It's frustration because of their inability to communicate.
It's frustrations because of his inability to communicate. Now, autism is a spectrum, and it's a lot more complicated and nuanced than the way TV shows like this tend to portray it. But it is true that some people with autism have varying levels of difficulty communicating. And I think
Okay.
this becomes interesting when we take a look at what Blue's Clues actually is.
Well, what story should we tell? Great idea. We'll play Blue's Clues to figure out what story Blue wants us to tell.
It's a game where you try to understand Blue, a character who has an inability to communicate. This is literally the entire premise of the
So he's not the host of Blue's Clues. He's Blue? Bitch! What is this video? What is this?
show. So I think that this is telling us that blue represents the side of Kevin who struggles to communicate with others. Okay, but where did the idea for a blue dog come from?
Medication.
Like I said, I couldn't find any references to dogs in this episode. The closest visual was this vaguely blue drawing in Kevin's room that I can't really make out, or this teddy bear that kind of had a similar pattern to blue, but nothing really concrete, which is weird because blue is such a major part of this fantasy. But then I realized it doesn't matter if we can't find a direct connection, because in Blue's Clues, Steve didn't actually adopt Blue. In a flashback episode of Blue's Clues, we learned that when Steve was younger, he read a book about a blue dog.
It's a book about a puppy.
Which caused Blue to magically come to life. And I think this is also probably what happened with Kevin. We see that the children's behavioral clinic is full of what we can reasonably assume are children's books. Maybe there's a book in here that also gave Kevin the idea for a blue dog, just like Steve. In fact, this idea of a children's book giving Kevin ideas for his fantasy is exactly what we see at the start of the Blue's Clues intro.
Oh, I got the, I just got the chills. Oh, this is creepy. This is creepy as fuck, nigga. Fuck is you doing?
Hi, it's me.
That is the house from the drawing. Hello?
Every single episode of Blue's
Oh my god, I'm
starts with
itching.
a stack of children's books in the real world, before going inside of a book called Blue's Clues where the episode takes place. The show literally tells us every episode that Steve's world is fake and comes from a book. And I think this real world full of children's books is actually the Law & Order Behavioral Clinic. And if this is true, that also means that there's probably a book literally called Blue's Clues in the clinic that Kevin is basing his fantasy off of. So even if we never see a blue dog or even hear the name Steve in this Law & Order episode, Kevin still could have gotten all of those ideas from an existing Blue's Clues book in the clinic. Now, the only thing that doesn't really fit with this idea is mail time.
Oh.
Hello, mailbox.
Hi, Steve.
What if that's the doctor giving him a new prescription or something? I'm trying to be a game theorist. I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. See, look, I thought I had this shit down packed. Nigga, no the fuck I didn't. No the fuck I didn't.
I got a letter for you.
Sure, maybe the talking purple mailbox was just something from the book, but there's no way Steve watching videos of kids in the real world would be something in a children's book.
What if that's the other people in the clinic?
From our friends.
Hi, Steve. This is where we play with our blocks. This goes that way.
So, what are these videos? Well, the behavioral clinic is full of other children.
You want to see what a good day is for some of these kids?
So, I think these videos are Kevin's perception of the other kids. There is just an undeniable amount of connections and similarities between this episode and this show. It just really feels like Blue's Clues is all a fantasy inside of Kevin Jeffries' head. But at this point, you're probably wondering, could any of this actually be intentional?
Yeah!
Like, if this theory is true, does that mean that the entire plot of Blue's Clues
No, on Law & Order's end, nigga.
Actually secretly based on this one random episode of Law & Order? I'll admit, that seems unlikely, especially since this episode came out a year after the Blue's Clues pilot was filmed. I think it's a lot more likely that if this was intentional, then it was probably just the Law & Order creators deciding to secretly connect these two shows on their own.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
right.
just because
That's what I said at the beginning of the video.
they thought it would be funny, I don't know. Or maybe it's some weird mixture of both, because even years after this episode came out, Blue's Clues does still seem to weirdly line up with it. I honestly don't know. And to be fair, this could all still just be a bunch of weird coincidences and that's it. But regardless of the creator's intent, it still works, you know? And it makes talking about Blue's Clues a lot more interesting. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of the point of all of these edgy Blue's Clues fan theories. And this was originally where...
Why was there an AI picture of Blue as Clifford? What the fuck was that?
I planned on ending this video. But there was still one lingering question that was bothering me.
Oh.
If Blue's Clues really is just inside of Kevin Jeffries' head, then what about when Kevin died at the beginning of the episode? I mean, I guess we can just say that the entire Blue's Clues timeline takes place before Kevin's death, and if the show ever gets canceled, then we can just say that that is when Kevin died and the fantasy ended. But what if I told you we've already seen Kevin's death inside of Blue's Clues? So I recently watched the new Blue's Clues movie from 2022.
Oh my god.
Blue's Big City Adventure. And not only did I find even more...
I could never create content for kids. Ha-da-ding. Like, what the fuck? Nigga, sit down. I'm being a hater. I'm actually not sorry, but I'm being a hater.
Similarities between this movie and the show, but I believe that
this looks so goofy, girl.
Showing us the day that Kevin died and the true end of the Blue's Clues timeline.
Oh.
So this movie is about Josh, the newest host of Blue's Clues, going on a big adventure to audition for a Broadway musical in New York City.
Who's that?
We are definitely not in storybook world anymore.
It's kind of what you'd expect out of a modern day Blue's Clues movie. He goes on a journey to the real world and gets lost. There's lots of wacky hijinks, but in the end, he finds his way and gets the part.
We want you to be the star of our Broadway show.
Yes, of course. Yes.
But if you watch this movie with this theory...
Why is there a rainbow? Is it named Rainbow? Prism? What is the name of the gay one?
So many things take on a whole new meaning. The first thing that immediately
Where's Magenta?
Was the opening song.
It's a brand new day.
This song is about starting the day, and Josh keeps saying, "Good morning."
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Blue.
And literally, the first thing we hear Kevin Jeffries say is, "Good morning."
So is Donovan. Good morning, how are you?
Despite it clearly being night, we also hear this line in Josh's song.
This life is just like a beautiful dream.
This life is just like a beautiful dream. Interesting. And while Josh sings, the other characters keep telling him to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
It's a brand new day.
Right away, this movie feels different. Like it's trying to draw attention to the fact that this world is just Kevin's fantasy and it's time for him to leave it. Josh leaves his fantasy world to go to the audition in New York, just like how Kevin escapes the clinic at the start of the episode. And just like Kevin, Josh immediately seems very disoriented by the outside world.
If I saw this movie as a kid, this would actually scare the fuck out of me. I would be so overstimulated, I could fucking cry.
Until, of course, his fantasy starts to take over to protect him from reality. But what's interesting about this
I remember
movie
seeing that part. I remember
is
seeing
that
that.
for the very first time ever, we get these little glimpses of Blue's Clues from other people's perspective.
Oh.
Don't you think so, Madam Mustard? Oh. Lovely to meet you. Whoa! Mr. Salt! Mrs. Pepper! Am I glad to see you? Oh my God!
Like I said, this movie feels different. We learn that Josh's audition is at 3 o'clock, and the whole movie is just him trying to find the audition before time runs out.
It's almost time for my audition. Oh my gosh. We don't have much time, Blue.
Could this be why Kevin kept asking people what time it was?
What time is it? What time? What time?
Josh also doesn't know where his audition is. All he knows is that it's in a theater somewhere.
Excuse me. Do you know the address to the theater? Which theater? I don't know which theater.
Maybe this is why Kevin went to a movie theater after he escaped, because he thought it was his Broadway audition. Now, in the Law & Order episode, shortly after leaving the theater, Kevin gets arrested and then tragically dies in police custody. But that's not what happens in this movie. Josh goes to the theater and gets the part.
We want you to be the star of our Broadway show.
Yes, of course. Yes.
But instead of him leaving and dying like Kevin, we immediately...
So did Joe have a purple shirt when I was little, or is that some new shit that I just bled into to some shit that I thought I was a kid? I thought growing up, Joe had a purple shirt.
Cut to him performing the musical in a big climactic finale.
My dream is a reality.
Who is that?
So, if this movie really is Kevin's final escape, then what if this is what Kevin experiences as he dies?
Well, they do say you feel euphoria when you die, so I'm excited to die. What about y'all? That's morbid, but we all gonna die one day. So. Okay.
A massive final magical song where he's surrounded by all of the friends from his fantasy. The only people who ever really understood him. Even the old hosts show up for this final send-off for Kevin.
And thank you for making this a day and an adventure that I will never forget.
I'll never forget how you helped me find all those clues. Thanks again for all your help.
No, really. Now it's over. So long.
And that is sadly where Kevin Jeffries' story ends. Now, I know this final movie theory maybe doesn't have as much evidence as the rest of my theory, but regardless, I like thinking that maybe Kevin found some peace in his final moments. And yeah, I know that this movie came out 27 years after the Law & Order episode, so it's probably a stretch to say that they're still connected. Wait, is that fucking B.D. Wong?
I'm the director of Rainbow Puppy's Broadway musical.
That's why I was like, wait! That bitch was on the show! Rainbow Puppy? Girl, y'all could've... We have Blue and Magenta. Prism would have been a way better fucking name than Rainbow Puppy. Oh, kill the director. Wait, don't. Slap the director. Girl.
B.D. Wong from Law & Order SVU is the fucking director of Josh's musical?
I'm not entirely comfortable labeling the suspect a serial killer. We want
Oh, this man was fine.
to be the star of our Broadway show.
Holy shit!
We just figured out Blue's Clues. We just figured out Blue's Clues. We just figured out Blue's Clues.
Because this is my job.
Oh.
This is actually my job.
Oh.
Alright, that is my theory. Thank you so much.
Alex. What did I just watch? I need to go outside. I'm going outside.
I didn't end up going outside that day.
An outro. I'm gonna get up and go outside. Trying will always be good enough because I had enough will to do so.
Since we bout to close out, I do an improv. Plus that nigga stoning me cause I'm rock hard. About to get exclusive, do something to get your rocks out. And I'm telling you all of this cause it's what? Improv. Surprise, bitch.
at the end of the credits, bitch. More than a name and some ambience, bitch. More than some glimmer and some edits, bitch.